Margaret was a 62-year-old retired teacher. Her husband had passed away years ago, and she had chosen to live with her daughter, Emily. Emily was a smart and beautiful woman. But her mother's pride wasn't only about her looks. It was also about the man she chose to marry, Daniel. The first time they met, Margaret had trouble looking into Daniel's eyes. He wasn't just handsome. It was the tone of his voice, the way he moved, and most of all, the respect he showed his elders that made him stand out. Men like this are rare, the neighbors would say. But something inside Margaret had stirred. A feeling she couldn't name. A flutter she didn't want to define. When Daniel first moved in, he would help her in the kitchen, make tea, carry the grocery bags. First, it all just seemed polite. Then Margaret started coming down to the kitchen earlier just to talk to him. She began changing out of her pajamas, putting on a little effort in her appearance. One morning while drinking tea, Daniel looked at her and said, "Margaret, your hair looks really nice today. Makes you look younger." Her heart skipped a beat. She blushed but looked down, continuing to stir her tea. "Thank you, dear. You're always so kind." That tea tasted different that day. Something inside her had begun to grow. Weeks went by. One day, Emily had to travel out of town for a day. Margaret and Daniel had dinner together at home. The kitchen was filled with laughter. As Margaret was chopping onions, her eyes teared up. Daniel quickly handed her a tissue. Then, for a brief moment, he placed his hand gently on hers. Just a second, but it lingered in her mind for much longer. That night, Margaret couldn't sleep. She looked at herself in the mirror. "What am I doing?" she whispered. But her heart gave no answer, only felt. The next day, everything seemed normal on the outside. But nothing was truly normal anymore. Every morning, as they sat in the garden for tea, Daniel's eyes lingered on hers a little longer. Margaret searched for meaning in those glances. Sometimes she found it. Sometimes it slipped away. One night, while Emily was out with friends, Margaret was sitting on the balcony. Daniel came out with 2 cups of tea in hand. "You must be cold out here. Take this, warm yourself up." Margaret smiled. "Sometimes it's not the body that feels cold, Daniel. As you grow older, loneliness feels colder." Daniel pulled his chair closer. "But you're not alone. Or here. I'm here." There was something in that sentence. "I'm here." That night, for the first time, they looked into each other's eyes, deeply and silently. Even the wind seemed to pause. Margaret felt her soul tremble. From that moment, the glances grew deeper. Even when Emily was home, there was a quiet understanding between them. Whenever Emily left the room, Daniel would head to the kitchen, and Margaret would find a reason to follow. While preparing little bowls of olives or slicing bread, their fingers would brush against each other. It was no longer coincidence. Margaret was angry at herself. "This is wrong," she told herself. But her heart didn't care. Margaret's heart was no longer calm. Every step Daniel took, every word, every glance, tightened something inside her. At the same time it warmed her. At the same time it burned. What was this? Love? Or simply the vulnerability of being noticed after so many years? She was tired of asking herself. But the answers never came. Only more questions. One morning after breakfast, Emily rushed off to work. Daniel stayed behind. Margaret was washing dishes in the kitchen when Daniel quietly approached. He leaned against the counter beside her. The silence between them was like a curtain, soft but thick. "Want some help?" he asked. "No need," she said. "You sit. I'll take care of it." But Daniel didn't move. He simply watched her. Margaret felt the gaze. A strange shiver ran down her spine. She didn't turn, but she smiled. "Sometimes," said Daniel, "you want to tell someone everything, but you just can't." Margaret dried her hands and turned away from the sink. "What is it you want to tell me, Daniel?" He hesitated. Then softly, "Sometimes, just seeing you is enough." In that moment time stopped. Margaret was in another world. The words echoed like something she had heard long ago. But now, coming from her daughter's husband, everything was different. Everything was messy. Everything was alive again. That afternoon, Emily left the house to visit a neighbor. Margaret was reading on the couch. Daniel sat across from her with a cup of coffee in hand. They didn't speak at first. Then Daniel looked up and asked, "Do you ever wonder if the only reason I married Emily was because of you?" Margaret froze. Her eyes met his. "What are you saying, Daniel? Maybe I'm out of line, but I can't stop talking to you. I want to tell you everything. I think about you at night. Sometimes I just want to hear your voice. When I wake up, I want to see you first." Her throat tightened. This was wrong. She knew it was wrong. But her heart was beating so hard she couldn't speak. She just listened. "It started as admiration," Daniel continued. "Respect. I loved hearing your stories. But then, it became more. Your strength. The way you carry yourself. I just wanted to protect you. And then I wanted more." Margaret stood up. She paced the room. She looked out the window. "This shouldn't be said, Daniel. I'm her mother. This isn't a game." Daniel lowered his head. He didn't speak. But his silence spoke louder than any words. Days passed. Margaret tried to avoid him. But every corner, every chair, every breath in the house held his scent. His charming smile. His kind words. Even his absence made her feel more tangled. One night, Margaret woke up soaked in sweat. She had dreamed of Daniel. They were walking in a quiet park, hand in hand. No one else was around. Just them. Then she woke up. Her heart was racing. She didn't come down for breakfast. She said her head hurt. Daniel, respecting her space, didn't enter her room. But his voice came through the door. "Would you like some tea, Margaret? Maybe chamomile would help." She didn't answer. But her eyes welled up with tears. That evening, Emily came home late from work. During dinner, Daniel watched Margaret carefully. She looked tired. "Is your head still hurting?" he asked. She nodded slightly. "Must be the weather." But the pain wasn't in her head. It was deep inside her chest. Her heart. A weight she couldn't lift. That night, the house was quiet. Emily was in the shower, and Daniel stepped out onto the balcony. Margaret went to get some water from the kitchen. Suddenly, Daniel called softly, "Wait, can we talk for a minute?" Margaret hesitated. She didn't want to go, but staying felt harder. Slowly, she joined him by the balcony door. "Please," Daniel said, "don't say anything. Because the more we talk, the more confused I become." Daniel took a step closer. "I want to be confused," he whispered. "For the first time, I'm really talking to someone. With you I feel strong, but at the same time vulnerable. I'm not afraid. I just want you." Margaret closed her eyes. The wind tousled her hair. Daniel didn't reach out, but she could feel the space between them shrink, just a breath apart. Then, from inside the house, they heard Emily's voice. "Mom, are you in the kitchen?" Margaret jumped. Without looking back, she answered, "Yes, dear. Would you like some lemon water?" Daniel was left alone on the balcony, his eyes filled with tears. The next day, everything went on as if nothing had happened. But every look, every word between them carried a new meaning. One evening, Emily watched Margaret and Daniel together and noticed something. Her mother was smiling, but it wasn't the same smile she usually wore. There was an old spark in her eyes. And Daniel was unusually attentive to her. That night, Emily asked, "Mom, is there something going on between you and Daniel?" Margaret froze. "What do you mean?" she asked. "I don't know," said Emily. "It's just a feeling. You weren't like this before. He seems very devoted to you. And you're acting differently." Margaret turned away. "Don't be silly, sweetheart. I'm just tired." But Emily's eyes were full of doubt. As nights passed, the forbidden feelings grew stronger. Daniel no longer hid anything. The little notes he left for Margaret in the kitchen, the secret touches, the long looks in the dark. There was no going back. One day, Margaret found an envelope in the mailbox. Inside was a handwritten letter from Daniel. "I'm writing what I can't say aloud. My love and respect for Emily remain unchanged. But my feelings for you are different. Can't explain them. Think about you. I want to look into your eyes. Hold your hand every day. Grow old beside you. Is this madness? I don't know. But these feelings are real. If you feel even a little of the same, don't be silent. I'll wait." Tears streamed down Margaret's face as she read the letter. Years of silence poured out on those worn pages. That same night, she left a note for Daniel. One sentence. "Let's meet at the tea garden tomorrow morning." The next morning, Margaret arrived early at the tea garden. The air was crisp, but the chill inside her was heavier. Her heart carried a weight like stone. She waited. The tea on the table grew cold. Then she heard those familiar footsteps. Daniel appeared. His eyes looked tired, but when they met hers, his heartbeat quickened. "You came," she said softly. "How could I not?" he replied. There was silence. Then Margaret folded her hands in front of her. "I'm going to be honest with you one last time, Daniel. This story, it needs to end here. But I didn't want it to. Every morning I woke up imagining your face. Every night, I cried into the silence you left behind. But this can't go on." Daniel said nothing. Her tears finished what her words couldn't. "I love you," she whispered. "With my heart, with my mind, with everything I have. But I also thought about Emily, about your future, about my past. And I made a decision." Daniel lifted his head. His face was filled with sorrow but also deep affection. "You're leaving," he said. "But you're taking a piece of me with you. What will I become? You'll stay good, Daniel. You'll carry me like a secret in your soul. Sometimes your eyes will drift away, and the wind will remind you of me. But you'll move on." Daniel, the man who always appeared so strong, was now weeping like a child before her. This love without touch, it's tearing me apart. Margaret reached out, wiped the tears from his cheek. "We loved without touching. We loved in the purest way, the most real way. And maybe that's why it will never be forgotten." Daniel held her hand, as if he had never let go. Time stopped. In that moment nothing else existed. No Emily, no world. Just a single look, carrying years inside it. After that day Margaret left. Quietly, without telling anyone. She moved to a small coastal town. She rented a modest house. Every morning, she watched the sea and thought of Daniel. She lived with the letters she wrote but never sent. Like this one. "My dearest Daniel, I write my unsaids to you. I whisper your name at night. I listen for every sound, hoping one might be your knock. But don't come. Just the chance that you might is enough for me." Those letters stayed in a drawer, on yellowing paper. An entire life was hidden. Daniel never searched for Margaret. His marriage with Emily continued, but he always carried an emptiness inside him. Emily noticed the silence in him after her mother's departure, but she never spoke of it. Years later, Emily found Margaret's journals. In one of them, she read these words: "My daughter, I couldn't control my heart, but I never touched him. I never even met his gaze for too long. I only kept him in my heart, your husband, but I was never his wife. I only loved him, quietly, until the end." Emily closed the diary. Her eyes were filled not with anger, but with a deep sorrow, 'cause now she understood. Her mother had simply loved, just like anyone might, but at a far greater cost. Years passed. When Margaret was taken to the hospital near the end of her life, she had no one by her side. A nurse said she kept repeating one name: Daniel. When Daniel heard the news, he rushed to her. He entered the room. She looked so fragile. But when their eyes met, they both knew. Nothing had changed. "You came," she whispered. "I never left," he said. Daniel leaned down and took her hand. After all those years, it was still familiar, cold but full of love. "I never forgot you," he whispered. "I know," she breathed. "And I died loving you." The room fell into silence. Margaret closed her eyes. Peacefully. Daniel didn't cry. He just kissed her hand and stayed there beside her. The funeral was quiet. Emily left a single white rose on her mother's grave. Then she embraced the stone, like a child mourning her parent and everything she never said. Later at home, Daniel found the first note Margaret had left him years ago. "Don't be silent. I will wait." It had been years, but the ink was still clear, the feeling still alive. Daniel sat on a bench by the sea. He looked toward the horizon, and for a moment, he saw her, her hair in the wind, her eyes full of longing. He wrote a letter that day, then burned it. But inside he whispered, "I never got to grow old with you, but you shorten my life with love." Some loves are never lived, only felt, and that feeling keeps a person alive forever.